Bonjour, Kinamagi Nene Ireland Dishnikas, and welcome to this production of the My Math Network. Today's episode, Chapter 8, Lesson 8, Write Fractions as Decimals. We begin today's lesson by looking at the work from our previous session. And in our previous session, we used models to write the fractions as decimals, trying to connect the need to take a fraction, turn it into an equivalent fraction with a denominator of being a power of 10, either 10 or 100, and then being able to visualize the decimal that we had created. And you can see that 9/10 is 0.9, 11 over 20. 20 goes into 100 5 times, so we multiply top and bottom by 5 to give us 55 over 100, which is 55 hundredths. And you can see there 55 shaded in, 5 columns and 5 small blocks. One of the things I tend to do, like on this 9/10, is write a 9 and I see I have a 0, so I need one digit after the decimal point, and that's where I put my decimal point. That only works when placing it over 10 or 100. Number 3, we saw the answer is 0.8. Number 4, 0.36, 5.10, 6.28, 7.45, and that was it. Today we're going to take that next step, and we're going to do it without the model. I know some of you are going to be greatly upset by that. Sarcasm off. In each of these cases today, we'll be converting this fraction to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of either 10 or 100. And that's how we'll be doing the assignment today. Our essential question in Chapter 8, how are factors and multiples helpful in solving problems? What is the relationship between fractions and decimals? Well, as it's sometimes referred to, I've heard fractions referred to as decimal fractions or decimals that way. So there is a direct connection. 0.6 and 6/10 are the exact same thing. They are two different ways to name the same value. Draw a line to match each fraction with its equivalent. So let's start at 13 over 25. 25 goes into 100 4 times. So I multiply this by 4, which will give me 52. 52 over 100 is 0.52. 8 over 20. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40. So you could say over 40 hundredths or 4/10. 6/10. It's already over a 10, so you have a 6, so 0.6. 17 over 20. That's going to be 85 over 100. And last but not least, 25 goes into 100 4 times. 9 times 4 is 36. And now we have connected them. And if you notice, I go pretty fast, but that's from years of experience. So don't worry about your speed. But we will like you to move into the book. And this is going to be on page 595 already in your math textbook. If you don't have this paper available, you should pause the video and go grab it right now. The expectation is that you will fill this in as we go and create an artifact that you can use for looking back on as you do it. So example basic. The average weight of a tennis racket is 2/5 of a pound. Write this weight as a decimal. Well, step 1, write 2/5 as an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 10. 2 goes into 10, or 5 goes into 10 twice. And therefore, if I multiply the denominator by 2, I must multiply the numerator by 2, which gave me a 4. So now I'm working with 4/10. Make sure that's written in before I slide down to step 2. As always, when I'm about to clear the decimal, or clear the work, I will mention clearing all the drawings. That gives you a second or two to pause the video if you need to. And always feel free to rewind and rewatch sections of the video as you need to. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear the drawings. And we have that there. All right, so now we had 4/10. Let me grab my annotation tool here. I'll write it this way this time. And that's to show you that when you have a 4/10, it's the same as 4/10 like this. And that's important to notice because in the Google form, it's going to be more like this. And there we go. So I can use a place value chart to read the decimal. There are 0 holes, and there's a 4 in the tenths column. So we have 4/10. So the average weight of a tennis racket is 0.4 pounds, or 4/10 of a pound. Go ahead and write that in. Give you a few more seconds here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and clear the drawings. You can see that the answer is there. Let's look at example niche. Now we're gonna go 3/4 as a decimal. We know that 4 won't go into 10, but it will go into 100. I mean, 4/4 is $1, right? And you can look over to the side, there is the big helpful hint. And it's repeating what we've seen in previous lessons. Multiplying the numerator and denominator by the same number is the same as multiplying the fraction by 1. It's an equivalent fraction. 2/3, 4/6, 6/9, all the same. All right, so we said that 4 times 25 is 100. And if I'm going to multiply the denominator by 25, I had to multiply the numerator by 25. And 3 times 25 is 75. So I have a fraction here. 3/4 equals 75 over 100. So make sure you're writing that in. And how would you read this decimal? Let me go ahead and clear that drawing. I know you can't see that on your or my page, but it is on yours. And we'd read that as 75 hundredths because there are no holes, and there's 75 hundredths on the place value chart, and that's how you'd read it. So go ahead and write 75 hundredths. I'll give you a moment to do that. All right, now I'm going to go ahead to the next one. And we're into guided practice. Now, this is the part where you're going to do it, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to model it, and we're going to compare how you did it with how I did it. This will give you some insight into my thinking, and you may end up saying, yep, I'm good with what I had, or you might like, oh, here's another way. So when we do these, I will say, when I tell you to go ahead and pause the video, pause it, do it, and come back. All right, go ahead and do number 1. You may pause the video. Welcome back. Write 1/5 as a decimal. And you can see that 5 times 2 is 10, because we need a 10 or 100 today down there. And because I multiplied the bottom by 2, I multiply the top by 2, and I get 2/10. And that's written as a decimal. If you remember back earlier in the year, 2/10 was 0.2 or 0.2. There we go, and it's read as 2/10. And a way to remember how to read it is read the top number and then read the place value with THS for today. So 2/10. Let's go ahead and do number 2. Go ahead and pause the video and I'll see how you did on the other side. Apologies. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. 11/25 is a decimal. 25 times 4 is 100. So I then have to multiply my numerator by 4. 11 times 4 is 44. That's written, you take your 44. There are two digits after the decimal. 1, 2, so it's 0.44. And that is read as 44 hundredths. And that's where we get the hundreds from. If there's 2 digits after the decimal point, it's hundreds. If there's 1, it's tenths. If it's 3, it's thousands. Explain how to write a fraction as a decimal using equivalent fractions. Well, it's pretty much been the whole last 2 days. 3/5, I'm going to convert it into something that's over 10, which would be 6/10. And then I can just write 0.6 as 6/10. Do just a couple more problems. I'm going to ask you to do number 3, 4, and 6. So let me highlight those here. 3, 4, and 6. You'll pause the video. You'll answer those 3 questions. And then we'll come back and see how you did. You may pause the video now. Welcome back. 8/10 was already over 10, so 0.8 is 8/10. Notice there's 1 0, so 1 digit after the decimal point. Number 4 turns into 5 over 100. Okay, that's cool. But that means 5 little squares, which isn't a full row. That's why we have a 0 here. If you do my little trick of 5 over 100, there's 2 zeros in 100. So you have to have 2 digits after the decimal point. So that's why I had to annex the 0 to get 0.05. 0.5 would be the equivalent of 50 over 100, or in this case, 10 over 20. And number 6, top and bottom by 4 gives me 16 over 100, 0.16. Hopefully you're seeing that there are some tricks available once you get it into the tens and the hundreds with just writing numbers around. And if you need further instruction, our 5th grade team is always happy to help you. At this point, you're going to go back to the assignment. You're going to write each fraction as a decimal and do those story problems. You can either turn in this paper or you may fill out the Google form and submit that. You may also opt to write your name on top of both pages, scan or take a picture of it, and send it to me via text or email. Lots of different options to submit your homework. As always, if you have any questions, please see me. I'm always happy to help. Have a minogishigad minwa bamapi.